Yeah, we'll just go over like the big beats of the movie. Like the beginning has a few things to touch on. I would say really cool design of ships, and the battle droids are also a new concept.
First droids experience, right?
Well, battle droids.
Not C-3PO or R2 or functional droids, but first battle droids first.
Yeah, technically. I mean, I feel like in some of the comics, there's been...
Okay.
Yeah, but those guys that are... those specific look of those guys.
Oh, and those look really cool.
Those
I really
awesome.
like the design.
The droids are really
cool. They're great.
Yeah.
And the droidicas, awesome.
The rolling ones that have the bubble shields.
Those
guys.
What are they called?
Droidicas.
Or destroyers. Very confusing.
Yeah.
At the beginning, the Trade Federation guys, the Nemoidians, Newt Gunray and the like, are going like... they're going like, send the droidicas. And then when they show up to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan goes, destroyers. I don't know.
Who knows?
What are they called?
Yeah, but they're very cool.
Yeah, great. So they introduce a lot of cool concepts right away, but also a lot of confusing things, I think, where it's like, okay, so the Trade Federation has a blockade around Naboo. But what is Naboo? What is like I don't know, like the Chancellor has secretly sent 2 Jedis to go and negotiate this thing between a planet and the Trade Federation, whatever that is. And so it's like, but is it a secret or is it part of the government? Because or both. I mean, perhaps, but like they're negotiating something between 2 other seemingly important government interplanetary figures. Then the Emperor shows up like pretty much right away and is like, I'm actually in charge of the Trade Federation and all of this. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, I was kind of just wrapping my head around the Newt Gunray, this new Chinese fish character
who have cool eyes. I like the design of their eye.
Their wiggly eyes.
Yeah, they're little zigzaggy, like black lines with red lines on the outside of them. Those
remind me of looking into like the sun. You know?
Yeah.
Cool. Like, and then you blink and you
cool
have
eyes.
Which I mean, we can touch on this as we go, I guess, but fascinating to me how really the non-humanoid aliens in the original trilogy don't really speak English. And yes, there are still racial and cultural stereotypes being used to inform a lot of the alien species and tropes and things. However, they do, I think, a much better job of distancing themselves from that in the original trilogy by... A lot of it goes to them just not speaking English and speaking a made-up language. But in this, we have a lot of aliens speaking English. And all of them are, like, pretty rough. Direct, easy. Of course, when you're a little kid, you're not thinking about it. But as, you know, even when I was, like, 11 or 12 is when people kind of, I think, started joking about, like, Watto especially being, like, a pretty bad, like, Jewish stereotype character.
Dude, it really takes you out of it, like, when they're aliens, too. It's like, weirdly, like, fitting into a cultural stereotype of just, like, normal Earth, you know? What?
I know. It takes you out of the universe of Star Wars and also makes you think, like, what? George, what are you doing?
On a very, very surface level, like, I can understand, like, oh, let's just take cultures from Earth and superimpose them onto, like, different aliens. Right. So, like, it's a terrible idea. Like,
But, I mean, Watto is, like, rough. Like, he's, like, you know, literally saying things like, you know, oh, I only care about money. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty bad at a few moments. And Jar Jar is like just borderline like, you know, I don't need to get too into this, but borderline like minstrelsy is happening with Jar Jar Binks. Like, so I guess, you know, we could get that out of the way. Yeah, the Nemoidians is the species of alien that the Trade Federation guys are, and they all kind of talk like Chinese guys, and that's pretty weird too.
Yeah, well, and I think
and they're all played by white guys too.
Yeah. I think like something to just kind of underline in this part of the discussion is probably like a certain recognition of like societal, like cultural acceptance, or like society in 1999, 2002, 2005, like the willingness that people still had to just not be as accepting and throw around like casual racism, or like just like white guys being like, whatever, we can do a Chinese voice. Like
deeply embedded in the Star Wars movie is kind of actually like a crazy cultural thing, you know,
especially considering the impact, like the legacy that these movies now have, that this is now, you know, set in stone for all time.
And this is the one you started on?
And this was my first, baby. Let's go. Love them, Newt.
Wow, a lot of things are...
Hey, no, we're fine.
Yeah, you're totally right. And, like, I know you don't mean that in a way to excuse it or anything like that, but it's just like, it's so true that, like, you know, Star Wars is far from the only example at the time of, like, so casually just throwing that kind of stuff around and not really giving it a second thought and being like, well, yeah, like what's the problem?
Right.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. It's I'm definitely
powerful,
not excusing it.
I didn't mean to like imply that I thought you were.
You said you defend every aspect.
I did. I don't think I said. I said I defend Qui-Gon. But no, I think like. It's a really interesting like piece of this conversation is not excusing it, but like recognizing that even as recently as 20 years ago, like, you know, with the first Rush Hour, I just watched Rush Hour for the first time a couple weeks ago, and the first one came out in 03, 4, 5, somewhere around there. And there's like one of the most famous parts of it is like do you understand the words coming out? Like the whole movie is just like kind of playing into that stereotype of like, this
guy's not the same as me.
Yeah, his sounds different, you know. So it's crazy that, you know, where we are now compared to just how casual and accepting the world was, or like you said, would overlook or not give it a second thought of like, is this okay?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I guess I won't know for a long time, but I'm really curious, like the evolution of how Star Wars does their aliens and like where they are. Because I'm sure they're sort of locked into something now with like, okay, these are like the do's and don'ts when making new alien species. So I'd be curious how like Disney's currently doing it, or if they maybe they have so much in the Star Wars repertoire they don't introduce that many new alien species anymore and just use the ones they have. But I don't know.
It's definitely a fascinating thing to keep track of, and you know, like, I don't know. I also don't mean to be apologizing for it, but like I will say, like, it's hard, like coming up with like a culture of an alien species. Like it makes a lot of sense why you would turn to cultures that exist on Earth, because like that's what you have to pull from in your knowledge database and everything. It's just like you got to be really careful when you do that, I think, or have it be like pretty intentional. And if you are going to do that, like have the right kind of consulting done, or maybe just like avoid that kind of stuff if you are like a white guy, like making all of this and it's your universe. Like, I don't know, like it's hard, but you know, you can't just like make them be Chinese guys.
Because that's the easy low hanging fruit. And sorry if I just interrupted something you were going to say, but I think it also goes to the whole like passion of the fan base, because the other side of that, it's like, yeah, we should do our due diligence and like create a whole backstory and not just copy and paste a real human culture into this thing. But, you know, when people talk about like Star Trek or like Jabba the Hutt, like there are real fans who have like learned the language of Huttese, and they know they're so devoted to this creative thing that it would be that much harder, because you know the pressure of like Sebulba's like speaks a different language, and Anakin like learned the language and spoke it with Watto, like, you know, behind Qui-Gon's back.
That was
so
Huttese.
Oh, sorry, that was Huttese. Okay.
No, I was just saying.
Yeah. But still,
it's not like you should know that. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. But still, to that point of like, and again, I'm not excusing George just being like, let's just make Nute Gunray and those people just kind of copy and paste this certain, cultural stereotypes onto it. But I think the flip side of it is because of how passionate the fans are, like, there probably, I would think, is a little bit of that feeling of pressure of like, do we have to now invent an entire language for a species? And then does that start from gibber? Is there a key for that? Like a dictionary? That's a lot of work. And I'm not saying they should take the shortcut, but it's a lot.
Yeah, I think there's just like, you get into the thing where people get so obsessed with like franchises like this, where you get like just lore nerds.
Yeah.
Because I even catch myself even within the Star Wars IP being like at some time, I'm not like a crazy Star Wars lore person. Obviously, I haven't consumed that much of it. But even it was literally a comic we were just reading. I'm forgetting which one, but they introduced like a civilization where there was like less men than there were women.
This is Ki-Adi-Mundi's home planet, Saria.
Nice.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, it's going to be really interesting if they explore like how that has influenced these guys' psyches. Like just like being in a world where like, yeah, they're going to have multiple wives and like there's the main wife and then there's the secondary wives. Like, how does that affect a person's personality and like a person's authority as a Jedi? But then the comic doesn't really touch on that, which is fine. I was like, it's not really for that.
Yeah.
But that kind of like greater stuff about alien species and like the way that they live their lives on their planets is interesting and like probably should be used as a launching point for a lot of like the characterization for some of the aliens if they wanted to do that. But
it's a testament to the product in general, like the fact that you're even thinking that or wondering like, oh, I wonder if the psyche is going to be like, that just shows how good, I guess, the world building is. Even in a movie like this, where we've talked about the pros and cons of the Phantom Menace, like there's a lot of world building happening here. And is this the first time that you saw some of these, like Coruscant or Naboo or some of these worlds?
Yeah. Coruscant, no.
Coruscant in a movie, though, first time.
Oh, true, yeah.
Yeah, because I think, we've already talked a ton about Gungans and Jar Jar, so I don't want to keep going back to that. But I still will want to underline how cool I think it is to, at a big swing of the entire underwater sequence. Like, if I was on the journey that you were on right now, I feel like there's a part of me that would want to just now see certain boxes checked of like, well, how does Star Wars approach an ice planet? How does Star Wars approach an underwater city? How does Star Wars approach this and that and this and that? So it's fun to see like the Gungan city and how their breathing apparatus works or the little bubble design of their city. Like, there's a lot of world building that this movie does. And I especially think the Gungan city is cool and the underwater stuff is cool.
Yeah, no, that is.
But also Jar Jar taught me how to swim. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you thought back to that scene.
I did,
probably specifically pretty often.
I did.
No, yeah, that's all cool. I like the different planetary terrain setups that they do. It's like always fun to see their takes on it. I do think it'd be awesome if they, and maybe it doesn't work in movie though, because we've seen it a couple times in comics where they go like way more abstract with what a planet is. I keep thinking of that one like very early on in one of the Marvel comics, which are like really bad, to be fair, but it was like they were on a planet, or it was a cartoon maybe, where like it was all basically like pink goo. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think this was the cartoon that was in the holiday special. I think.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, because it was animated, they had like a different medium to play around with, so they're able to do like different takes on what a intergalactic society on this planet would look like. It was just really cool. I like that like different take on it.
Yeah. I agree that the Gungan city looks really cool too. I think especially that shot, the first like establishing shot of it is awesome. Like the music. I mean, we said it before we started recording. John Williams like elevates this like 50 points hardcore. Yeah. And I mean, we kind of talked about the opening sequence on the ship, but as soon as they start invading Naboo and landing their dropships, the droid army march theme is so amazing. I mean, what a banger. And it repeats many times throughout the movie, but like such a good song. It plays again when they're up on the hill and the canisters open and they activate like all those racks of droids. And that's a pretty cool sequence too, I think, when they like all have their heads down and turn up and then like about face to the Gungan shield.
That was pretty awesome. I also thought the scope of it was just going to get like more and more insane. I was like, damn, how many are coming off that thing? It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. It's such a... I will take a moment to like soapbox with John Williams and the music and the score and everything, because I think like it's such a masterclass in like cinematic film scores and composing. And like it's, I mean, because he did the original trilogy also, right? Yeah. So it's like him specifically, but also in these movies, like that is the 6th grade bands have been playing this music for decades now, because it is the epitome of this grandiose orchestral thing. And the fact that there is like, I think as somebody who enjoys music and has played music and been in band classes and everything like that, I think sometimes it can easily be an overlooked aspect of like the overall storytelling, where music is a character. Soundtrack is a character. It influences the pacing, the drama, the intensity, everything about it. And like, to me, kind of earlier when you asked about who I think is like the main character of the prequels, when I think about it, when I think about Star Wars, honestly, like usually the first thing that comes to my mind is the Darth Maul fight at the end. And it's that sequence. And about probably at least 50% of the reason why I think of it is because of Duel of the Fates. Is because of the song that's playing while that happens, and the reveal of Maul in the elevator with the first like
pretty crazy.
Because there's also something to the timing of editing. It goes all the way back to why I'm just in awe of old like Looney Tunes cartoons, because they would write and compose and time these entire 80-piece orchestra scores to a 7-minute cartoon. And the fact that in this they can time the editing and the pacing of the movie to,
which is frantic,
the tuba hit, the chorus, the male chorus just singing the like, it's such an impressive giant piece of this puzzle that I think has gotten its flowers. Like, I don't need to be soapboxing about John Williams and the music of Star Wars, because it's probably the most iconic like film scores that exist out there in the public eye. But like, he does such a good job, and it's the opening crawl, Duel of the Fates, the droid, like every little piece of it is so good to capture the emotion, to like telegraph to you subconsciously as an audience member, like this is how you're supposed to feel about this moment. This is a sad moment. It deepens the sad. It heightens the intensity. Like, it's so good, and that's so hard to do. And it's incredible, like, round of applause to the 80-piece, like, orchestra that's all at the top of their game playing this music and is cut into this movie. It's just, like, I love the sound. And the sound design, also, of this movie.
God. Ben Burt, hats off
so good.
Again to the
That's
sound
another
effects.
one of those.
Oh, my God.
This movie has a lot of good and a lot of not good. And I think that some of the CGI is really great. Some of it is awful. The sound design, some of it, like the farting animal, like really cheapens a lot of the good. But a lot of the sound is like the pod race.
Bulba's pod race.
Dude! And the fact that, and also how cool is, I feel like we're not getting through the sequential idea of this at all.
Fine.
But like the fact that the pod race scene is like a whole 15, 20 minute long, like Formula One race. And you're like...
With no music for a long time.
With no music.
Too.
And also the fact that if you pay attention, like Anakin's pod is just a straight up, like, you can tell there was a Foley artist or a sound guy at like a Formula One track, and they're just recording straight up the like it just sounds like a real human race car.
Yeah.
But the sound design is so good. The music, I'm going to stop talking about sound, but the film, the music, the sound is so amazing.
It is awesome.
I'll just point to two little
it is
examples in the score that I find awesome. I totally agree with everything you said. And just in addition to that, another incredible thing that John Williams does And forgive me, both of you and anybody watching. I will do a little bit of singing just to illustrate my point.
Nice. Okay.
So Anakin's theme, right? In this, pretty like just innocent little hopeful thing. But he weaves in the Imperial March right at the end of the main line of the melody. It goes na, 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 and then at the very end, also, so Palpatine's theme is like, and at the end, the Gungan march is happening. And they're like,
yeah, oh, that fanfare trumpet.
And then it goes, and it's mirroring the Emperor's
same
theme,
melody,
because this is the conflict that he orchestrated to put himself in a position of power, and through the surface of, oh yay, we just saved the day. Well,
yes,
you did, but you also elected Palpatine as Chancellor of the whole government now.
I love that.
Like, and that's in the music.
I love that.
The movie doesn't seem to want to focus on that, but that's John Williams being like, oh, that's an important thing that's going on. Maybe I'll play that into it.
I love that.
So sorry to sing, but
no, I
feel
loved
like
it.
mattered
First of all,
for that.
Nice job.
Contextualize it for me too, because first watch, I'm not really so much connecting like, oh, Palpatine's theme comes back into play here. So it's cool to hear about.
It's this unsung hero that often is not caught right away, and I think all movies, most movies, try and do something like that. But it's that unrecognized musical aspects can still have motifs and themes and recurring ideas and emotions, just like in Shakespeare, a certain line or a quip can be brought back multiple times or have certain iconic impact. Like, you can do the same thing with a little melody, or the Jaws, like, it's such a recognizable thing that isn't just a sonic whatever, I heard something, but it has real storytelling pieces to it. And they do such a good job.
It's crazy. It's awesome. Hard thing to vocalize, I guess, but you did a good job. I think. I think he put his whole freaking nuts into this one. On the soundtrack.
They sound good.
And Duel of the Fates, what an incredible song. When I was from the time I was 6 to 12, maybe, I took piano lessons, and multiple recitals of piano were Star Wars songs from this Star Wars songbook that I had that had most of the main themes from all 6 movies. And after I did the main theme with my brother as a duet, when I was 6, the next one that I did was Duel of the Fates, right away. And I couldn't play it anymore, but I definitely I do still have an image of that piano recital,
imagine a fight in your head.
He's watching the scene.
It's sort of
music.
The elegance of the Jedi in the left hand versus the aggression of the Sith in the right hand.
Yes. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good, man. And the moments of when they're sitting there patiently, Qui-Gon's meditating, while the lion of Maul is just stalking back and forth, and then Obi-Wan gets his lightsaber out because he can sense that, okay, the timer's about to go off and they're about to open up. And then the music, if you're not already sensory, there's this overwhelming feeling. The music just helps exaggerate, all right, pedal to the metal, let's go.
Yeah, man, that whole scene's so good too. That being a little forced pause that both him and then Obi-Wan have to go through is a really nice little touch.
Doesn't really make any sense. What are those things?
Why are they there?
And you
7 doors that close on the timer. But I do like it a lot, though, for what it adds to the movie. And I wish maybe they had I don't need a line about it, but maybe show us something of like, oh, some aliens working on something, and that's like part. I don't know, some reason why it's there would be nice, but
it does lead to one of the biggest like Obi-Wan character moments, I think, in the movie of like he just watched. His scream when Qui-Gon gets killed is so like guttural and strong, and it like that's what starts making me like well up. It's just that immediate impact, the music, cymbal crash, and then Ewan McGregor screaming like no, and then the moment of him just watching the person who, in theory, has probably, I don't know how long you might actually know this, of like a Padawan mentor like relationship usually lasts. Does it start when they're little kids and goes for decades or whatever? But Qui-Gon is somebody that Obi-Wan has looked up to, father figure, spent every waking moment with for how long, and then watches him die, and then has to sit there behind the screen as Darth Maul comes right back up to the screen. He's like, all right, boy, dude, you're next. Let's
Darth Maul's
go.
So quick there with the dude. It's great. He like immediately dispatched and goes on to Obi-Wan like waiting for him.
He doesn't care at all.
Yeah, it's really... I also love like... We know like nothing about Darth Maul right now, really. Yeah. He's just kind of like this silent threat that like popped in and just shows up there, and then they take him out, but I don't know.
And props to the actor who I think you will know, because I know you're a big fan of this IP. Props to Ray Park, the actor who plays Darth Maul, because he is in the first X-Men movie. He is Toad.
Really? Oh, really?
And so that's why it was like this fan servicey thing, because the first X-Men was like 01 or 02. Yeah. So the moment, spoilers to anybody who hasn't seen the first X-Men movie, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate it, but I've seen it.
Oh, come on. Okay. Well, Toad is the same like gymnastic kind of flipping stuff that Ray Park does to Darth Maul. And he has the big moment with his tongue where he grabs like a big steel pole and he's doing like the double lightsaber flips that Darth Maul does, and then Storm like just zaps him away or whatever with her little pun. Yeah. But props to Ray Park, who like says very little is this role, but brings so much physicality and especially like acrobatic, gymnastic athleticism. A Phantom Menace,
Dude, and I mean, props to Ewan McGregor, too, for the fight choreography, because I think after Qui-Gon gets killed and he comes out, I mean, it's in the cinematography as well as the fight choreography, but, like, that's an incredible, like, sequence of moves right there that they both are executing, flipping around each other, and it's all real, like, at least that part of it. There's some artificial flips that Darth Maul does at a few points, but, like, that whole sequence is all real. You know, he's turning, sweeping. Ewan McGregor is keeping up right with him, too, on
so
that.
good.
And it's like, wow.
This is what I've been wanting from lightsaber fights, by the way. So I am excited that this is, like, the fight choreography with those has been stepped up.
That was something I was thinking about and I wanted to ask you about, was because I can't remember quite how often, I think as a kid seeing these first, then going back to the original trilogy, I was like, what? All I want are are lightsaber fights. Like, why is there not more of that? So was that fight alone, let alone the opening fight with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan or whatever, were you a little more satisfied and feel like that, you got pleased with more action and Jedi lightsaber fights?
Honestly, like, to check that box off, yes. Yeah. Because the original trilogy, I feel like, doesn't do lightsaber fights that much or that crazy. I mean, there's the Luke and Vader fight, I still think is like superior to anything in this movie, but that's more because it's Luke and Vader, and like there's the emotional relationship that is like at play there that like really affects me. Right. But like when it comes to pure fight choreography,
it's overwhelming with the. I mean, again, as a kid,
that's what makes me like get emotional. Is like, sorry to no, but just real quick, but like him screaming and then coming out and being so like aggressive, and like as a kid you're like, no, Obi-Wan, you can't kill someone in anger because that'll turn you to the dark side, and like you can't think of it as revenge, and you know how good it is. You know, when I was a kid, this fight had just as much emotional impact as the Luke and Vader fight. Now I feel more emotionally invested in that one, but it charges me up still.
Because in the same way, like, I even felt it this time where I had the moment where after Qui-Gon dies and Maul comes back and is, like, just grinning at Obi-Wan, I was like, Obi-Wan, you can't take this guy. Like, you just had this awesome fight choreography in a really cool looking setting, by the way, with the like giant pillars of the power beams and the different walkways that they're jumping up and down and punching them down off of and everything. Really cool fight choreography. But the whole time, as a kid especially, but still even now as an adult watching it, it's this like, it's hard to focus on just one aspect of the fight because it's so fast, and the dual lightsaber adds to the threat of Maul, and the fact that two like fully trained, good fighting Jedi are like barely keeping up with this one Sith with a double side. It's so frantic and so hectic of a fight scene that then when it's Qui-Gon 1v1 with Maul, you're like, oh God, oh no, they've barely.
Both of them couldn't take him.
2-on-1 they couldn't get him, and now he's alone, and then he dies, and you're like, oh my God, it makes sense, but damn, Qui-Gon's gone, and Obi-Wan, you don't have a chance in hell to beat this guy. How do you know?
Maybe he does give into his anger a little bit there. Interesting. He brutalizes him though. I always thought it was so sick as a kid when he falls, and then as he's falling, he just comes apart in half, and I'm like, oh my God, I put him in half.
The coolest,
Like, that was so awesome.
I still think he's coming back, though.
Hey, he might or might not come back.
Darth Maul clone, anyone? Predict. The second one is called, is it?
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. Boom.
Attack of the Darth Maul clones.
Yeah, just you thought one Darth Maul was a problem?
An army of Darth Mauls.
All the lightsabers, like
it's all the expo markers when you're in middle school. They just have a gigantic.
I'm just trying to see what else I want to cover. I know we've been talking for a while, but I still feel like there's a lot of stuff that we haven't even touched on yet. So if you guys are okay with keeping on going for a little bit, as long as you're not too tired or anything like that.
Projecting much?
Come on.
No, I want to keep going. I just don't want to hold you guys hostage or anything.
You already made us watch this movie.
Okay, well, I invited you to be a part of it.
I want fired up, Ryan. Come on.
I'm hurt.
So I guess the big things we haven't talked about that much yet are the pod race. I mean, we've mentioned some things about it, but it's clearly a huge focus of the movie for some reason. I mean, it's awesome, but
they had to get the parts for the ship.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can do it.
Hyperdrive.
Have Anakin win the pod race.
The most convoluted thing.
Truly a quest.
I know. I literally have in my thing, like, they're just doing a side quest to get
when are you gonna?
I was like, they really want to show off the pod racing, so that's fine, I guess. They keep teasing it.
Yeah.
Like, he's the best pod racer.
Yeah, when are you going to tell him, Anakin? Tell us what? Well, that you've never finished a race, of course. What was that kid's name?
Kitster.
That's
Kitster.
Cool. Kitster. Yeah, like
Kitster was cool.
And we're going to go play ball. And then Kitster stuck
That's that ginger kid.
Who also his lips did not line up with that line.
No.
He was also like covered in soot. Like, really dirty kid.
I love when Kister's like, "That's Wizard, Annie." I guess we can talk about that first before I even bring up something else, so we can have a little bit of focus with it. But which I swear to God, I don't mean that as a critique of you guys. Like, I am having a hard time not jumping around to everything. So I was gonna say earlier that I think it's very strange and sociopathic of Qui-Gon the way he handles the whole freeing of Anakin and Shmi, the mother of Anakin.
Shmi.
Because that's her name, Shmi Skywalker.
Shmi, okay.
Like Peter Pan?
That's just Shmi. Yeah. But it's quite close. Who, by the way, I think does a great job of acting.
I agree.
One of the better acting performances is Anakin's mom, I think.
I agree.
He's like, okay, I want to, like, free Anakin and his mom. I'll take the bet on if Sebulba, wins, you can have my pod. If he loses, I'll take both Anakin and his mom. Sebulba's like, no. Watto.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah, Sebulba. Watto's like, no way, I'm not doing that. He's like, okay, one of them. And Qui-Gon knows the whole time that he's gonna pick Anakin.
Yeah.
And I understand why. But he doesn't really seem to have any kind of care for the fact of Anakin having to be separated from his mom. That has probably been the one consistent piece of safety and positivity in his very difficult young life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I'm just going to pull him away from all of that and everything he knows because I want to train him and him to be a Jedi. And okay, well, maybe those things are legitimately important, but I don't know. It's just so I'm going to change the chance cube to make sure it lands on Anakin because he's more valuable of a human being to me than his mom, Shmi. I mean, he's more powerful of a Jedi, so she doesn't really matter as much as a person. Very, I don't know, rubs me the wrong way, and I wish Qui-Gon wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think it kind of goes, for me, it goes to what you guys were saying earlier about the kind of flaws in his character of even as you were saying that, it made me curious for backstory on Qui-Gon because I wanted to know how old was Qui-Gon when he first got scouted or joined the Jedi little kiddie training program or whatever. How old was he? Did he get separated from his family? Does he maybe have an apathy towards the family dynamic because of something that happened with his parents or his home? How does that all play into it? So I'm a little let down that we don't have that context, but also pointing to a flaw in the character of him just kind of sometimes being a little inconsistent or not having time to explain certain things. I had to stop myself from trying to crack a joke while we were watching it because a couple times he's trying to be the calming hand and the wise person, but there's a couple times where he's standing behind Anakin's mom and just does this little shoulder touch, and I'm a little this feels a little stepdad, Annie, go to the ship. I need to talk to your mom for a second.
There's a good bit of fan art and
of course.
No.
People wanting Qui-Gon and Shmi to be a couple. So it's funny you should say that.
Oh, jeez.
It is a red flag to me when I see him wanting to pull Anakin away from his mom, who, like you said, is the only real stable parental figure that he has in his life, and you're gonna take him away at such a young age where he has no connection to any of his parents anymore.
Yeah.
And even he was will I see you again, Mom? So probably not. I was gosh, this is
that
dark.
seems like a huge oversight that I hadn't really thought of character-wise with Qui-Gon, where especially how quickly the Jedi Council sensed the fear in Anakin when they're doing the testing, and Yoda's much fear in this boy, fear, the speech, right? The famous line of fear leads to this, that
anger leads to hate leads to suffering.
Yes. Why was Qui-Gon just so blinded by the potential happy ending of this prophecy where he just ignored all of the fear that he probably also sent? Because it's made very clear that Qui-Gon is very easily could be in charge of the Jedi Council, let alone Mace Windu, right-hand man to Yoda. He's capable and in tune with the Force enough that he's a Jedi Council member level strength and intuition and everything, but he chooses not to be, or for whatever reason, he's not a part of the Council. So you can't tell me that he didn't sense the fear in Anakin and the strength in Anakin and know this could go really badly. And I'm now going to even just deepen the pain and fear and insecurity and emotional negativity by ripping you from the hands of your mom.
Yeah.
The one living,
This makes me really interested to keep watching other movies, actually, because it is super interesting setup in and of itself for Anakin. But then, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. Liam Neeson's character?
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
Qui-Gon dies, too, which is was becoming his pseudo father figure.
Yeah.
And then he's stuck with Obi-Wan, who is just...
It was kind of mean to him before that.
Jerk,
whatever, you're here.
Big brother. Yeah.
So he tells me we've picked up another pathetic life form.
Yeah.
Dude, Yeah, I forgot about that completely. I was like, Opie, dude.
Chill.
Yeah, that's not you.
Yeah.
So
You're not you and you're hungry.
it would be okay, I think, if that was him, and then Qui-Gon says things to him like, "Hey, like, you need to stop thinking of people like Jar Jar Binks." I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, but like as like a lesser being than you. Like we are all, one with the Force. We are all part of a harmonious balance of life. Blah blah blah. There's no life more important than another, and that's kind of what they want you to follow along with, I think. But then also we're just saying, well, Qui-Gon clearly values the life of Anakin objectively more than the life of his mother, because it's a more valuable like person to him.
Yeah.
So I would like to, read my whole thing of my little fan fixing, but one of the things I was thinking of is, wouldn't it be cool if the Jedi Council was really like, hey, you have to bring Anakin in now. He's dangerous to be out there by himself. And also he's the fulfiller of the prophecy. We are like the dogmatic people who believe in prophecy and think like, oh, the chosen one, blah, blah, blah. Like, bring him to the council now. And Qui-Gon should be the one who's like, okay, yeah, like I would like to mentor him, but maybe we could like organize something where he could stay on Tatooine with his mom or something, because he is a little bit older and he's not a baby anymore, so he has a relationship with his parents. That like, I think that makes more sense to what they're even trying to do in the movie, but they just kind of are at odds with it sometimes.
Yeah, it's really short-sighted for him to just so willingly, selfishly, like put his belief in the prophecy before, recognizing the fear and ripping Anakin from his mom and not giving some olive branch of like, well, okay, maybe here's a way that we can figure out some sort of a reconciliation, or he still gets to go back and visit, like on the one condition that he gets to go back to Tatooine, like once a year to see his mom, or every so often, when the sun crests the.
Man, I'm jealous that you guys have like the total vision of Anakin Skywalker as a character, like, because I'm like just thinking in my head, I'm like, man, this is all real. Like, is the stuff that this Jedi Master did, like, did he make Vader end up being like a net negative in the universe? And then I'm like, or is Vader like a net positive in the universe because he ended up like, making peace and
killing the Emperor.
So
he made the good choice as the father at the end of the day.
And joining the Force. So, but I don't know. I don't know like the full history of everything that he's been through and done. So I don't know how bad it's gotten too. But it's interesting. And like the domino effect of Jedi decisions.
Yeah. That is I think that's something that I've overlooked maybe even in my own watching of the prequels and then eventually of the original trilogy, is that like kind of how the system sort of failed Anakin in a lot of ways. Like, I think as a kid, it was easy for me to just go like, okay, this stuff happens in the second movie and in the third movie, and then he's gone to the dark side and he becomes Vader and he's evil. But actually analyzing and looking under a microscope of like, no, it's a big butterfly effect of like Qui-Gon sees potential in him, takes him from his mom, and then this happens, and then this person lets him down, and then this person tries to help him but lets him down. Like,
what's really interesting I know we talked about it, but like that the council refuses him too. I feel like should be a big part of like his character and everything too. Like
they refuse him, but then they kind of like 2 seconds later are like, okay, you can actually you can train him.
Well, I feel like they just do that though because he was going to do it no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I don't know.
I mean, and I guess Yoda at the end says like, I don't think you should train him, but the council did vote after Qui-Gon's death that you can train him. But I still think it's a bad idea. So,
I would listen to Yoda. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would listen to Yoda too, based on caring about him from the original trilogy. But I think he's kind of like mean in this one. And they're so cold to Anakin. Like Mace Windu and Yoda are just kind of like bullies to him a little bit, and it's strange. I don't know. Like
he passes their men who stared goats test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Speeder.
A speeder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other big thing I wanted to bring up, other than the pod race, and we've been talking about it, is the Jedi Council in general. I mean, the introduction of Coruscant is a lot of big concepts that they don't dig into too much here, but like we've got the two main players on Coruscant are the big Senate building with all the circular chairs and all the species.
Awesome, by the way. Similar to me, like that and the Gungan City are two really standout, like production design, set design, concepts of like, I love, and the Senate isn't in the original trilogy.
No.
That's a thing that really stands out on the political, like non-action boring side when I was a kid watching the prequels. Like there's fun lightsaber fights and all this stuff. And then they talk and they talk and they talk. But like the image of the Senate always kind of stuck with me of it's such a cool design and that like stadium seating little discs when you kind of look at it from a bird's eye view, it becomes almost this like patterned thing that you get into a trance of the shaping of it. It's really cool.
Almost reflects the unending nature of conversations in politics, not creating any decisions or action.
So yeah, I like the Senate. Not interrupt. Cool design.
No, I agree. It's cool.
Yeah, I also do think that is so I recognize it. So I don't know where I've seen it before. Maybe just like, again, I was telling Jackson, I feel like anything I know about the prequels is just like stuff people have tied to like Palpatine and politics, you know? So they'll just like make memes where it's like, this person's like Palpatine, like, so, you know. But
that's funny.
So maybe that's where I've seen the room before, but it is really, really awesome and like grand, which is awesome.
Yeah, cool design.
Cool.
Cool design.
And then we've got the Jedi Council, the Jedi Temple. This is our first look at the Jedi Temple, building 4 little towers and 1 big tower in the middle. And we meet the Jedi Council, a big group of characters. You're already super familiar with one of them, Ki-Adi-Mundi. And of course we know Yoda. But we meet Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Eth Koth, Saesee Tin, Avon Peel, Yaddle, Yariel Poof, Oppo Rancisis, Adi Gallia, and Depa Billaba, all there in the Jedi Council.
Wow, genuinely,
all in one breath. Nice job.
Truly seemed like it was easy to use.
I have the right amount of level, amount of major general.
In the shower today, I was like, can I name all 12 of the Phantom Menace Jedi Council members?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Very nice.
Did I hear Sexy Tin in there?
Saesee Tin.
Oh, okay.
He's the orange one with horns on the side.
Nice.
I feel like I gotta, again, maybe because like my first watch of these, there's always like so much going on all over the screen. I feel like I don't remember there being 12 guys like distinct to look at there. So
just in the circular room there.
Yeah.
But they also really highlight like camera, like shot wise, they pretty much only like linger on Yoda, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah. Ki-Adi-Mundi's other than Yoda and Mace Windu is the only one that talks. So, and then the only other times they really show him are at the very end on Qui-Gon's funeral and then the celebration. There's some shots like Eth Koth. Evan Peel is the very small one with like big ears and the cut over his eye. Plo Koon, really cool one, like cockroach head looking guy.
It's the tall, like thin neck one. Which one's that?
That's Yariel Poof.
Yariel Poof.
And his species is Queermian.
Queermian.
Yeah. Interesting.
Man, these names.
Yeah. It's a bit,
Queermian eye for the Mandalorian guy.
Whoa, hey.
And his last
Very
name's
bad.
Poof. So yeah, I don't know what they were going for there. But yeah, this is the Jedi Council. I mean, were you disappointed with Yoda content in this or
No, not really, I guess. I know I said I was excited to see more Yoda and wanted more Yoda, but like as the movie was going on, it was kind of like Yoda doesn't fit too neatly into this, so I'm kind of okay with Yoda just being like a character on the periphery or whatever. I do like the one little line he had about like fear and everything.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a good in character Yoda quote.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, he didn't do too much. I didn't like the way he looked in this movie. Even though some people might think it's the preferred way.
Some people would say it's more detailed and flowing and smooth.
Wow. Okay. It's gonna ignore everything you said because there's how does one start picking apart a sentence?
Some people would say it's looks more natural for an alien species
to be a 3D animation versus a puppet
that is stiff and you can see a hand. That's a debate for another.
It was
podcast.
one of the most technologically inventive puppets of the time.
Hey,
shout out Frank Oz. Love Frank Oz.
Yeah, me too.
That's true. They did say it was that Yoda puppet. They were like, we watched behind the scenes where they were like, yeah, this is one of the most intricate puppets ever made right now.
That's so cool.
But then they didn't really show much of like the intricacies in it.
I think they were kind of trying to keep it like proprietary or something.
That's cool.
From the special, but I don't know that for sure. But that's what it seemed like to me, the way they were showing it.
Well, I'm smart. I was trying to see how it worked and copy it and make my own Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I know.
Kind of like a Sith Yoda is my pitch.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, what if Yoda was part of the dark side?
You know, I've listened, as a big fan of the podcast, I've listened to some episodes, and I like when you guys, like the role-playing game, I like when you create your own story, and especially like your prediction for Phantom Menace. Like, it's really fun seeing the, like, creative, like, abyss of you don't know what's coming, but you've got ideas and you have a foundation. To then just go with like, let's see what we can. So a Sith Yoda, cool idea.
I won't lie, I kind of like my Phantom Menace idea better than what the movie actually was.
Yeah. I agree.
But you know, it's all about execution. So they would have been able to pull off that genius.
Yeah, such a obvious, clear, award-winning.
So what? Did you guys find like Padme and Anakin's relationship to be like pretty interesting, stimulating, cute? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I made you this so you'll remember me.
Having seen the rest of the prequels, obviously, I want to choose my words carefully and not say or imply too much, but especially that scene with the I made you something to remember me. There was such a stronger like discomfort that I felt of like this is a kind of weird like maternal like he just lost his mom.
I care for you too, but you miss your mother.
yeah. She's like got her hand really close to his face. Like this feels a little because of how young, especially. I'm just assuming. I mean, sure, girls like mature. I've heard mature faster and they look older when they're still whatever. But like, how old is Padme supposed to be?
Characters are supposed to be 9 and 14. Anakin's 9 and she's 14.
Wow. Yeah. So it just and she looks. I mean, Natalie Portman looks young in this, but there's just some like I don't know. It feels a little.
It's strange.
A little strange.
Yeah, I will also say I don't like. I can't pinpoint what type of relationship they're trying to like cultivate between the two, but also I will say it felt very forced. To me, like the way there was like, and again, maybe it's just because like I'm watching the kid actor try and act what is somewhat more complex emotions, I guess. But I don't know. All like their line deliveries to each other just like rang really hollow to me. Just like we're trying to be kind of like cutesy and elicit an awe, like whenever we talk. But I was like, I don't know why you guys even like each other. Yeah. Like
you're a funny little boy.
Yeah.
Are you an angel?
What? Yeah. An angel.
An angel.
I heard the Deep Space Pirates talk about them. They're supposed to be the most beautiful creatures in the whole universe. They're from the moons of Iago, I think.
Kids got game.
Yeah.
Kids got game.
I just think, I agree. They try to focus on that. I don't know, like I say, they try to focus on that a lot. I can really only think of like 3 parts in the movie, but like they try to focus on a lot of things in the movie, I think. Yeah. So
I would just say it seems like no chemistry at the moment.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Sure.
I assume they're gonna age up. Well, I guess that kid probably isn't gonna be in the next one, so that'd be my guess based on what I've learned here tonight. But and I know there's like an older actor that plays Anakin, because I feel like I've seen a shot of him like fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi in like a volcano or something before, you know.
I don't know what.
Did they fight a volcano?
You can't call us gaslighters and then try and force and set us up. Catch
I'm
us
just,
red-handed.
I think that's, and don't make no expression, make no indication. Might be very hard for you. Might be incredibly difficult. But I think that's also like where Vader gets his burn marks. Like, I'm assuming he falls in lava or something in that fight. So.
Whoa!
Well, I don't know.
Maybe
falls or gets like pushed or just backed
it's
into.
like a toilet swirly.
Yeah, he just he accidentally steps in a whirlpool of lava.
Yeah. But we said it earlier with acting wise. I think like especially it's a thing that I didn't recognize on on any watches when I was younger. But yeah, Natalie Portman in this, great actress. Not trying to bash Natalie Portman, but feels very stiff in a lot of the line delivery, and I can't tell if that's like an acting shortcoming in the moment or if that's like a choice to try and be, because there were some times where I felt that she was intentionally either receiving direction or making the choice as an actor to like be a strong backboned authoritative, like the queen of an entire planet. So she was very, very straight-faced in a lot of situations where Palpatine is talking to her or she's facing some adversity or she's telling Qui-Gon, like, I think you assume too much or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's moments where she's very straightforward with the delivery, but I think that kind of is, like, hampers her in some ways, and especially with the Anakin interactions, it kind of leads to... It feels like a brick wall talking to a brick wall.
Yeah. Maybe that is actually the problem, because I did think it was a choice that she was trying to like play her character off that way. But you're right in that she doesn't really switch it at all ever.
Yeah,
like tonally when she's in a different dynamic with someone. So it could just be, her not really capturing what they want from her. I guess I would have trouble playing that character though if I was her too. I feel like there was not so much to grapple on, like, from the script itself.
Yeah. And I don't think that George Lucas is the best director for actors either. Like, he's not... I don't know. I've heard a lot... I've heard other people say this, so I guess I'm just kind of parroting, but, like, feels like not really an actor's director, I guess.
But I do think, like, I just saw this clip on social media recently and feel like it could fit appropriately in this part of the conversation. And I don't think it's spoilery or anything, but talking behind the scenes wise, I've seen clips where like in interviews where George has been praised for his like attention to detail with Jake Lloyd specifically on set and like trying to be a comforting presence and always be there and calm him down or give him direction or just like making him feel comfortable on set, knowing like, hey, you've got this pressure to play Anakin Skywalker, who becomes Vader, and this is a huge budget thing with a bunch of tech and technology and all these things happening, that he was very hands-on, like behind the scenes, going up to the kid actor, trying to be like, hey, pal, like, trying to calm him down. Which I agree. I think you're right. I don't think anybody would assume, based on interviews or interactions, that George Lucas is like a real actor's director. But like, props to him and kudos for recognizing the scope and the weight of the moment on the human being of Jake Lloyd and being like, okay, I'm going to go out of my way to kind of protect this kid a little bit.
I mean, he seems like he might be a good guy to work with. Like, none of the actors have bad things to say about him or anything like that. So like, I'm sure he's good to work with.
Yeah.
I don't know if, there's some directors that really know how to like coax a performance out of people and everything. And I'm not sure he's one of those guys, but you guys have anything else you want to touch on before I'd kind of like to share my little fan rewrite, but I'm not in any rush. So if you guys have any other thoughts you're having, feel free.
Not really. I think a lot of the things I specifically wanted to hit, I did. I got my soapbox about music. I talked about CGI and the actors. I think if anything, just like reiterating the whole like pod racing sequence is interesting, and the fact that it's just this like space F1 race where they use the sound effects that they do, and the fans are going crazy and they're watching the screen. It is this kind of absurd piece of cinema, but it's also like intense, and there's a lot going on, and it's kind of fun and interesting to watch that. And then the cultural, like, in the zeitgeist outside of just this movie, the fact that like Anakin's line at the end of like now this is pod racing is like a huge line that's like a meme now. And moments of the pod racing and Sebulba and all these things have kind of transcended like you go to an arcade and there's like all the different racing games, and then there's like a pod racing game, like its impact outside of this movie became such a huge thing, which for better or for worse, like it's clearly a piece of the movie that they put a lot of effort and money into. So
interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen too much like pod racing.
Yeah,
I don't know, like merch or video games or anything, but I'm sure that's about to blow up here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if they find a way to work it into the other two movies of this trilogy, so we'll see.
Yeah. The part where I could be wrong, but I know a lot of the pod racers' names. I think this is Arc Roos, when he goes when he gets blown up. That's also a pretty big meme as well. Yeah. I love about the pod race that it literally lays out like the entire lap and shows, obviously not the entire thing, but it shows pretty much 3 full laps of like a race. And you can like construct like, oh, this is this section at the beginning of the lap. And then the middle part where they go in between the canyon. And then there's the cave with all the side types. And there's the end with all the arches that you have to go through and everything. And it's like, wow, like I could see you could easily make that like a video game level without having to really add much beyond what is shown to you in the movie.
And it's cool that the sequence is kind of in real time. Like they don't do a lap and then like cut to Qui-Gon talking to Shmi or whatever, and then like they cut back and they're halfway through the 3rd lap. Like it's kind of in like you could start a stopwatch and probably get the real accurate like time of the 3-lap race, which is neat. Like I feel like unless the movie's like Speed Racer, that's an easy thing you could just kind of like skip to the big moments of, oh, this guy crashes or whatever.
Yeah. Anything else, Rye Guy?
I don't know if I mentioned it. I know I said it before, but I just think it's funny that I thought Darth Vader didn't speak, and then he does speak. But I also thought Darth Maul would not speak. And, much closer because he barely does speak. But I don't know why I have this image in my head of like Sith characters not speaking. But
it's just so like visually iconic that you could like, well, they could hold their own without ever saying anything. Like,
that's probably it. Yeah. So they look imposing enough that I would just imagine they don't need to do it.
Cool how they introduced Darth Maul in this too. I think like on a hologram first, and then like on the balcony with Palpatine. And
that hologram like image is pretty iconic of him, right? Because I feel like I've seen like that was one of those things where I saw it and I'm like, I've seen that before.
Yeah. I believe so. Okay, so I'll try and be somewhat brief about this, but just stuff I've been thinking about.
Just a quick 40-pager.
Yeah. No.
We got another 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay, so this I will, disclaimer, like taking many ideas from the movie. Like I could not think of these things on my own. George Lucas is insanely creative, and like it's so much easier to, without any restrictions of movie making, be like, well, it would be better if it was like this, like 25 years after the fact and blah, blah, blah. But I do think the movie has a lot of issues and could be a lot better with some of the same bones. So this is kind of something I've thought about for several years and whatever.
Now is the moment. Now here's your platform to finally share with the world.
Yeah. So look, what if it started, right, with Palpatine I'm not going to reveal too much about what any character's actual backstories are or whatever, but this is all just with information we have from this movie. Palpatine goes, finds, we see him going to get like young infant Darth Maul. We also see Qui-Gon getting young Obi-Wan, or maybe not Qui-Gon, the Jedi Council, discovering Obi-Wan. This is in my head an opening montage that is showing the parallels between Darth Maul being tutored from a very young age by Palpatine in the Sith ways, and Obi-Wan being tutored in the Jedi ways. It would establish to us how the Jedi Order functions and works at the time, and also introduce us to like our main bad guy, and in this version, our main character. And then we get to the point where, there can still be Palpatine as a senator on Naboo, and also still is like pretending and is actually Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord. You can still have the trade blockade, but let's learn about what does Naboo contribute to the galaxy. Well, I don't know exactly, but as a placeholder in Star Wars, there's spice is like a popular drug that is often just used as a thing of like, oh, well, this planet sells spice. These criminals sell spice. So we'll just use that as the placeholder.
Okay.
So probably spice or something. Padme's still the queen, but the fact that she's such a child and was raised in opulence and elected, they say she was elected to be queen, and she's 14 years old. Yeah. She was elected when she was like 11 or 12 or something. So like she probably has no idea how the governmental systems, especially outside of her bubble, work at all. And she's probably being manipulated by all of the older people who actually know how the universe works and, can exploit her power and everything like that by like telling her what to do, right? Which happens a little bit in the movie, but let's like focus on that and let's make her come from like a super wealthy, like pampered background where she's like pretty naive to the fact that like bad stuff happens, right? Then you could have it be where slavery is going on Naboo itself. Just keep it all there as one thing. And like, let's say, Padme doesn't know or doesn't believe that is going on her planet. It's been kept from her, but the adults know, whatever. Anakin works in the spice mines, right? Palpatine, is maybe making money from this, and it's part of like, he's actually one of these bureaucrats that influences the Chancellor and spices his thing. And he's also working with the Trade Federation to like even further increase the profits of it and playing both sides against each other, whatever. He discovers Anakin during like an attempted like revolt or some fight or something that happens. And he's like, oh shit, like that guy can use the Force. Like, and he's actually really powerful. Like, I'm gonna like keep my eye on him. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are sent to Naboo to resolve a trade dispute, but they learn of like all the bad stuff going on Naboo, like slavery, and they sort of act as like exposing Padme to the realities of the world and bad things that can happen. Qui-Gon also discovers Anakin and thinks, hey, I should bring him to Coruscant, or I should train him or something. He wants to bring more Jedi back to Naboo to liberate it and end the slavery, or at least, find some peaceful way to like stop that from going on. Darth Maul is sent by Palpatine to kidnap Anakin so that, Palpatine can pretend like he has nothing to do with it and send someone else in there. But he and Qui-Gon fight, and then they're like, okay, it's not safe for you here. Got to take you to Coruscant. Back on Coruscant, the Jedi Council cautiously accepts Anakin's training. But in my version, there's no chosen one or anything. Obi-Wan becomes frustrated with Qui-Gon through this, though. You can't have two Padawans. What about me? What about me? Obi-Wan's character arc is like he's maybe a little selfish. He's young and arrogant, and he thinks he's like a badass Jedi. Obi-Wan, feeling neglected, sides with the Council and says, like, the council is right and you're wrong. You're my messed up master that never like does what the council says. And if you just be like the council, blah, blah, blah. He asks Yoda, like, can you take me on as a Padawan? Because my master's neglected me. And Yoda's like, just chill. Qui-Gon also is met with friction when wanting to bring Jedi to Naboo. Here's where we can actually show Qui-Gon being empath and the Jedi's being dogmatic. They fear it will be seen as an act of war and an invasion if they bring too many people there, so they side against it. They are keepers of the peace, not starters of conflict. Qui-Gon goes crazy over this. How can you be keepers of peace if you allow violence to go on in systems that you're supposed to protect, like slavery and things like that? Qui-Gon decides to quit the Jedi Order. He tells Obi-Wan, as he's quitting, hey, I only thought to train Anakin because, Obi-Wan, you are already ready to be a Jedi Knight and you don't need a master anymore. Obi-Wan doesn't want to quit the Order because he's still young and he's influenced by these great heroes of everything. But he does know that Qui-Gon is right about the slavery on Naboo. So he says, okay, I'll go with you. Because Qui-Gon is headstrong. Padme's going back to, he's like, I'm going to do something. I don't know. Obi-Wan's like, okay, well, I'm not letting you do that by yourself. Anakin, you stay here with the Jedi, but he sneaks back to Naboo with them. Because why do they bring him along to Naboo in the actual movie? Padme realizes that the older people, this is almost over, by the way, realizes that the older people in the government have been manipulating her in an effort to make the Jedi seem weak and uncaring. Palpatine decides that with their combined power, him and Padme, he's still the center of Naboo and she's the queen, so maybe they could explore like what that actually means, who has more power in that kind of dynamic. But he convinces her, like, let's abolish slavery on Naboo. And like, it's my idea. Like, I'll be kind of like this hero of abolishing, or maybe like she could have some powers that she didn't realize she had because like nobody told her or whatever, but technically through this clause of whatever, you're allowed to abolish slavery or something. I don't know. But they know that it won't be met easily, though, by like other powerful, wealthy people who benefit from it. So Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon agree to help like oversee the peaceful transition or whatever. So there's a parallel story going on where Darth Maul is having a similar arc to Obi-Wan, thinking, wait a minute, Palpatine is using me to get a new apprentice. He's about to abandon me as soon as I get Anakin. So he didn't even care about me at all. As soon as he saw someone who he sensed was more powerful, he's going to take him. So there's a final confrontation where maybe Padme and Anakin could have like a little side adventure together and they help something. They build some romance and chemistry. They're probably closer to the same age in this version too. Okay. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight off Darth Maul, who is maybe trying to kill Palpatine in this, but Palpatine's just still pretending to just be the senator, and Darth Maul, is like trying to expose him to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon while he's dying or something, and but Palpatine's like, he's crazy, or something like that. Qui-Gon's still killed by Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan kills Darth Maul. Obi-Wan agrees to train Anakin, but turns to Yoda for advice on how to be a master. Yoda realizes he was wrong not to take Qui-Gon's side about the whole slavery issue on Naboo, and promises to make changes to the way the Jedi Order handles problems. That's just my little thing, because I don't want Yoda to be mean. But, that's my version of the movie.
And then, assuming then that the events of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith remain as earmuffs, that it all still occurs the same way,
pretty much,
based on where this left. Okay,
this is the only one that I have that I actually have thought of ideas for without being like, I'm gonna think of ideas for this. They just kind of happen. The other ones, I'm sure there would be things I would change about them too, but this is assuming that those are the same.
I would have liked your version of Padme so much better if they actually went with that characterization for her. I think that, because that type is a character type that I'm like, oh, you're a privileged, it's kind of a uptight person who learns that the world's bigger and you have responsibilities because of your privilege within it. I love that type of character. they've been sheltered to those things and like are
Right.
kind of cold and uppity a little bit about it too.
Yeah.
If they had done that with Padme, she would have been my favorite character of the whole thing.
Yeah. Because I have to assume that she was like born into this. Like if she's in charge at such a young age, it's maybe going back to the whole Shakespearean comparison that you made earlier, that she is some like princess or something. Like she was around royalty her whole life. She was around this like political power, and she saw this all the whole time. So why not explore that exact thing of like, you've been sheltered, you've been kind of innocent. So yeah, I think I like the fan fixing, I think is what you how you put it.
Yeah, I guess
not fan fiction, fan fixing. I like I would say like, yeah, I'm totally on board for that, and for like the two reasons of I really like I think it's way more engaging and a fun like dynamic to see the Senator Palpatine Padme interactions. I would love to see more of that kind of like puppeteering and like father figure, almost like of him trying to manipulate her, but in a little bit of a way of like, it's okay, like I'm more experienced, I've been around, like I'm the old bureaucrat, but I can give you advice, let me help you and guide you in your journey to political power. All the while, like, and also the parallels of like apprenticeship within that, of like the potential for him to sort of take her on as like a bystander, boring, non-force using, like whatever sort of political apprenticeship, compared to him as Darth Sidious and Maul's apprenticeship. And then the other reason that I would 100% greenlight that is just more Darth Maul. Like I want a whole movie of Darth Maul. Like I want more of him.
Yeah, when's his Disney Plus show? That's what I want.
I don't know, but yeah, I mainly wish they focused on.
Just keep throwing. I've listened. Just throw darts. Something will stick.
Yeah, he cracks eventually. Every once in a while, I can get something.
Yeah, I'm not freaking invincible. I know you might think so, but yeah. Well, that's something I've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah. How's it feel? Get it off your chest.
It feels good. It sounded pretty good to me. Even reading it back, I was like,
"Hey, we can make a fan version of the film.
Yeah,
just do our own thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
Who's everyone want to play?
I want to be young Obi-Wan.
Okay,
like not current, not young, but like when he's being trained as the little kid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
like 7-year-old Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to be young Anakin just so I can do that pod racing. Did you cut that? Was that in there?
Oh, he
pod
didn't say
racing
it.
wasn't even in there.
No!
We can still have that.
Okay. Yeah, that feels modular enough that it can just fit into any spot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like, we need to get something, and the only way to do it is to win the pod race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What do you think about him building C-3PO? Did you Did you know about that Anakin built C-3PO?
I didn't like that at all, actually.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I don't like the forced inclusion of those droids in this movie. It's like, it makes it seem like there's some greater, like, power going on, where it's like, everything was always connected to, like, and these droids were always going to be part of the story of, like, space history or whatever it is, you know? I don't know.
Nope.
I'm a little more forgiving towards R2-D2 for some reason. I don't know if it's because he's, like, less... he's not like a dialogue-driven character. I don't want to say he has no characterization because he does.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's just kind of like after R2 shows up, which is like weird. He just happens to be the only droid on. They're all putting out the fire on top of the ship.
He's one of like 6 droids that doesn't get blasted.
By luck, he's the only one that doesn't get absolutely annihilated on the top of that ship. And then it's like, hey, what's this R2 unit, or what's this little droid's number? R2-D2.
He's a hero.
It's like, okay. And then for the rest of the movie, they're just like, come on, R2, let's go. Like, R2, right, it's R2. We all know R2. And then even Anakin's like, R2, get in the ship with me and stuff. And it's like, right, because that's what R2 does, but what?
Like, gotta sell those R2-D2 toys, though. It must have been a profitable toy for the original trilogy.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But come on, when C-3PO didn't have an eye and he put the eye in.
Yeah. Oh, I can't see. Oh,
I made him to help Mom.
Yeah.
My parts are showing.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
morning, C3PO. You're a slave also, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I do really like visually though the design of
Yeah.
wired C3PO
Yeah.
with no coating.
You can
on
see
it.
like the whirring like piece inside his head. At one point, you kind of see through the eyes or his forehead or the little like forehead, like eyebrows, little plate that he has, and you can see into his head. There's a little spinning piece in there.
wow.
It's kind of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's a practical puppet too.
Yeah, again,
It's a man in a morph suit standing behind a puppet and
So
moving
cool.
it. It's Anthony Daniels doing it, I believe.
yeah. Again, that goes back coming full circle with Jar Jar. It's like so interesting to me of in the room, like the producers when they were deciding things and putting their checkbooks down and saying like, okay, we're going to do certain things practical and certain things not digital. And what are we gonna? And the fact that Jar Jar is like they committed so hard to, that's so much money.
I'm trying to imagine what a practical Jar Jar Binks would even look like, and in my head, I'm just getting like a terrible, like what AI generates basically. That's what it would look like to me. But
that does make me think. I know I'm the one that keeps saying we shouldn't keep talking about Jar Jar, but I feel like the one last thing that I did specifically want to say is just the fun like alternate universe what if hypothetical of like, do you think there was ever a person like in a suit behind the scenes involved with Disney IP that thought like, let's make a Christmas special, another one of like the current like because the first New Hope comes out and then they do the Christmas episode, the Christmas TV special, Life Day thing, which I haven't seen, but I've listened to the podcast and I'm so enthralled by it. Was there a person you think that ever suggested like, come on, let's do it? But B, in an alternate reality, like hearing you guys explain the Chewbacca story in the Christmas special,
he would be the focus of it for sure.
with Jar Jar Binks and like a Jar Jar, like another shitty like TV hour-long special with the 1999 celebrities and like Winona Ryder, so like just random like people coming into this, and then Jar Jar
Jim
Binks,
Carrey.
Jar Jar Binks going home to his like. He's like the older brother who's been kicked out of home, or he's like an uncle or something.
He said being banished for being clumsy.
Yeah. Like imagine there's an alternate reality where that exists.
wow. Well, you know what though? I think it's funny. I can't definitively say it, but I feel with some certainty that someone did pitch that at some point. But I think, and maybe I'm misremembering, Jackson. Like, didn't George Lucas, in retrospect, be like, that was kind of a bad idea that we did that.
Yeah.
So I think like Man on Top was always gonna exit for the prequels.
I just have to assume like the money making. If anybody was like, yeah, but George, just imagine
it would be so cheap.
Jar Jar in a Christmas sweater, like like.
Well,
just,
to tell you the truth, I don't. Maybe there is something, but I don't know. I'm surprised they're not doing Christmas specials like today. Like, it seems like a Disney cash cow thing they would do. Like, every year there's going to be a Star Wars Christmas special based on, like, some character in the IP.
Well, there's, like, now, like, Disney Plus does the Simpsons, like, little short films, and it's, like, the Maggie, or Lisa is Loki, and it's, like, Marvel.
And
then Maggie is, like, a spy. Like,
I'm so glad they haven't done that with Star Wars. And when they do, it's always relegated to, like, Lego animation.
Yeah.
They did just make, like, a Lego holiday special for Star Wars that has, like, some jokes about the holiday special and stuff like that. But, like, only one.
Yeah,
you know?
nice.
And, but, yeah, they've already oversaturated the Star Wars content, at least on the TV show side, but I'm really glad they haven't fully, like,
sold out.
Yeah, like the way that those Simpsons things have gone, and like crossover type stuff. Like, please don't cheapen it that
It wasn't
much.
really cool and fun when Lisa became Loki.
You'll have to tune in and see for yourself.
Well, any closing remarks?
Not as not as great a Star Wars flick as I thought this one would be, but after all I've been through, of course I'm still here for the next ones.
Yes,
Hell yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I hope that and I know you probably can, but I just hope that, some of the positive or interesting aspects of it can still come to the surface for you, even though it is bogged down in a lot of bad stuff for sure. But there is good in him. I can sense it.
and I will say, like, I'm still really hopeful for a lot of the characters. Like, yeah. I don't know, but I feel like Padme is going to be a favorite by the end of this trilogy. And I'm saying that just based on a feeling, because she didn't do too much in this first one. But I feel like, I'm like, okay, well, she's included here for a reason. So they must have, like, big plans with her. Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah. I'm still game. I'm still clocked in on everyone.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I think my takeaway is my final thoughts is, like you said, I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, but I'm happy to try and represent like a piece of probably a certain intended audience of little kid first viewing of Star Wars ever when you're that young. And because of that, like I said, like Darth Maul and the final battle with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, like, are such lasting images of Star Wars for me that I'm much more willing to like cast aside some things from the original trilogy that are sacred. It's sacrilegious to even suggest that, in favor of some things from these prequels, just because of the like nostalgia and you're like, there's nothing like the first time kind of sentimentality to it. And there's pieces of this that I think are awesome. Just so good.
Man, when I get to the point where I'm going to start going online and fighting with fans about Star Wars stuff, it's going to be the nostalgia people like you who are going to be a big problem, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
You guys are going to have your nostalgia glasses on. But no, I do think there's good ingredients in this movie. They just didn't prepare the dish properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Good analogy.
Thank you.
Well, this was a long one, almost 3 hours, but...
Longer than the movie.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How long is the movie?
Like 2:20.
Oh, okay. Felt longer.
I'll probably edit it down a little bit.
It felt short to be the movie.
Really?
I kept being like, that's why I was like, I felt so weird trying to gauge where we were with like the third act structure. Yeah. Because I was like, we're in the third act, but like, I feel like there's got to be more movement.
Yeah. I haven't learned anything yet.
Yeah.
The pacing is very strange too. It doesn't really like build like a movie should, I guess. But I don't know, something I say too much, but like a collection of scenes rather than like a forward
cohesive
like path. Somewhat it has a forward path and momentum at some parts, but anyway. Anything else? Should we just sign off?
I think it's time to sign the frick off.
Whoa.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching if you watched. And we'll now do our classic outro that we do every time that all three of us know and practiced. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Go,